Okay.
All right, so I don't know many people in here, but my name is Tom Wingert. I'm the project manager for LaSalle's Neighborhood Health and Nutrition Project. And I'll explain, I guess, a little bit about what that is. So it's an idea that kind of started in 2009. This neighborhood was Philadelphia's largest and longest standing food desert, which means that there are no major grocery stores with access to fresh produce within a square mile of this entire neighborhood. That changed in 2009 when the Fresh Grocer was brought into LaSalle with a partnership between LaSalle University and the city. The Christian brothers that run LaSalle and whatnot were actually responsible for this idea from a mission-driven perspective, meaning that they said it's kind of the right thing to do to make this an environment in which we can bring in a grocery store, because that will improve the community immeasurably. As academics are wont to do, they start to think, well, this neighborhood has all sorts of health concerns, obesity, high blood pressure, all related to bad nutritional health choices. And people are thinking, well, they have this access to these fresh and healthy foods. Is that alone going to change the nutritional health landscape in this neighborhood? And what they kind of come up with is, well, no, it's not enough. So a lot of people for a few years now have been thinking, what other factors are in play? And that's where this project kind of started. How can we best utilize the resources that LaSalle University has, that community organizations and institutions have, to positively impact the nutritional health of this community? The mission, again, it's primarily partnership based. One of the biggest issues that this project faces is that LaSalle University demographically is very, very different from the neighborhood that we find ourselves in. We're primarily a white, upper middle class institution, both from the faculty and staff perspective, but also from the perspective of the students. We just don't necessarily look or have the same access to resources as do the other members of this community. So we want to say, okay, while we have these resources and we might not be coming from the exact same perspective, what we can do is partner with the people that are a part of this community and live here every day, not just during their 9 to 5, and figure out what you guys are doing to positively influence the nutritional health of this community and figure out how we can help. So that's that. LaSalle University's Will to Excel has that quoted in it. The Will to Excel is the mission statement of the university that runs through, I believe, 2015, at which point they'll have another university mission statement. Special focus on service to our local neighborhood. So that's kind of the constitutional language, I'll say, that gives us the right and the institutional motivation to do what it is that we're doing. We also, when my boss, Margie Allen, who's a professor in the English department and the chair of the Integrative Studies department, when she initially had the idea for this project, she heard from about 65 LaSalle faculty and staff from each of the schools. So the School of Business, Nursing and Health Sciences, and Arts and Sciences are all involved. So there are 65 people that were interested in this project, and 65 people who are all kind of taking from their unique disciplines and their unique expertise the time to really think about this problem and think about how we can help. Now what we actually do, and this is where it gets a little bit confusing, when this project started in the fall, and the idea was, okay, we've got all these resources, we've got people thinking about this stuff. Why don't we just plug into the Healthy Corner Stores initiative, or do some stuff with Phil Abundance, and apply ourselves to these programs that are already running. The fact is, these programs are already running, but we'd still have the nutritional health disparities with the that exist in this community. So if we already have these programs running, then what is lacking there? So we broke it down over the course of the past 6 months or so to say, okay, we'll just work on all these different nutrition initiatives that already exist. And now what we're doing is starting from basically scratch. We have a lot of people thinking about this problem and trying to plug ourselves into existing programs and existing institutions that are helping out. For example, last Friday we had a group of about 20 pastors and church officials come in to be introduced to our project and partner with the Easter Food Drive, which I'll explain a little bit more about later. But a lot of these churches have feeding programs or have food distribution centers. And the we want to work with exactly what those food distribution centers and feeding programs are doing, figure out exactly what their challenges are, what they do well, what they need help with, and then use the intellectual capital that the university has, all those 65 professors that I was talking about that are involved in this program, to help make them better. And instead of just feeding, hungry people, feeding hungry people good food. So what we're actually working on right now, I've got a lot of service learning things happening. For example, this class, service learning is a very, rough way to describe what's going on here, but the idea is that the work that you guys are going to be doing is going to help us later when we think about what to do next. So whatever your coverage of this program is will both give us good publicity, and it'll give us polished productions that we can show to people when I'm making these kind of presentations. And we'll expand this hopefully on a year-to-year basis. We also have a market research class in the business school that is basically taking their market research expertise to look at particular issues related to nutritional health in this community, specifically looking at the Fresh Grocer. Fresh Grocer, I failed to mention it earlier, is a major partner of ours. They're a full partner financially and otherwise. Their marketing director meets with us once a week pretty much to talk about where we're going here, and they're very excited about this partnership. One of the issues is Fresh Grocer has been losing money in this neighborhood since they came in. But their mission as a corporation is to provide fresh and healthy foods to neighborhoods that wouldn't necessarily have it anyway. So while they are a business, and while they do want to maintain their competitive advantage, and they do want to turn a profit, they're struggling to do so. So they're struggling to fill their own corporate mission because this neighborhood has a particular set of challenges. And that's not true of the other neighborhoods that Fresh Grocer operates in, which are largely urban neighborhoods that are right next to a college. There's one in Temple that's making money hand over fist. There's one up in Rutgers. There's one by Penn and Drexel, and they're doing fine there. But our neighborhood is a little different. So they see this as an opportunity to work with us to figure out specific answers to these questions and figure out how to become and maintain a viable presence in this neighborhood. So the market research class is going to be taking the problems that the Fresh Grocer is facing here, looking at that from an analytical perspective, and then presenting them with research and some proposals maybe that will probably find their way up the chain to Pat Burns, who is the CEO of Fresh Grocer, if we'd like to see. There's a digital art classroom that is rebranding this project. So right now we're running with the moniker Neighborhood Health and Nutrition Program, which is a mouthful and it's kind of hard to explain what it is exactly that we do. They're going to probably rename us. They're also going to give us a branding platform, so like a logo, fonts, color schemes, images. They're going to be producing some electronic newsletters for us as well. And hopefully this is going to be a year after year partnership with their capstone. Will, as this develops, we'll use them as a resource to make sure that our brand is as good as possible. The idea is that the better branded that we are, the more external outreach I can do to get the word out, create more partnerships, that kind of thing. The Leadership and Global Understanding Senior Capstone class, the 7 folks are all taking that as an independent study. They're all working directly with me on the Easter food drive, which again I'll explain a little bit more about in a little bit. But they have all been kind of delegated specific tasks in the project development phase of how we're going to do this Easter food drive. So part of that is going to be raising funds. We've asked them to come up with $1,500, but we're going to try to get a lot more than that, obviously. And some of that is going to be service delivery, some of that is going to be communications, some of that's going to be the actual execution of advanced logistics. So it's a real kind of crisp project management and development class. And these guys are just going to be the ones that are doing the work under my supervision. The academic enrichment program, a bunch of those classes are just looking at food politic related issues and applying it to their own particular areas of expertise in their majors. And they are also going to be doing some of the volunteering for the Easter food drive, whatever the LGU class figures out what to do with them. The social work department has one class that is going to be doing research on the consumption of sugary beverages by a local middle school, Wagner, a few blocks up that way. They'll just be kind of sitting out in a car in the afternoons and in the mornings, watching kids go to school, how many are buying sodas, because we know sodas are one of the leading causes of obesity in kids. So we just kind of want to figure out how many kids are drinking sodas instead of the orange juices or waters or whatever, so we have a real good baseline knowledge of what their habits of consumption are. And in terms of the project development phase, like I said, we've been spending some time breaking down this concept to the point where we don't really have that much philosophically that we're trying to address. So we want to do a lot of research to figure out exactly how we can best solve these nutritional problems in this community. So there's a couple of ways that we're doing this. Community needs assessment. The nutrition department is working with us to develop a needs assessment, essentially a focus group where nutrition staff, nutrition students, and maybe some folks from the community building team will go into churches and speak with small focus groups from those congregations and kind of talk to them about what it is that they view as community needs RE nutrition. Is nutrition the real problem, or is it a hunger sort of issue? Or is it a cultural resistance to certain kinds of foods? Or is it nobody's used to shopping at a Fresh Grocer and doing a week's shopping because they've had corner stores their entire lives. If they've lived in this neighborhood, they haven't had access to a grocery store. So they want to get a clear picture of what the community views as its needs, as opposed to, like I said, a completely different socioeconomic demographic coming and saying, these are what your problems are, we are going to fix them. We're also doing an extensive survey of Philadelphia schools. We have a 4-tiered interview system trying to figure out how the school district perceives nutritional issues and how to feed kids. Like many of you may be aware, almost 100% of the schools in North Philadelphia more broadly, but definitely 100% of the schools in this particular neighborhood, all kids qualify for free and reduced lunches. So kids are eating what the schools are serving them. And the schools are aware of this, and the schools have federal and state mandates to serve them a certain kind of food and address certain kinds of issues and educate kids about nutrition in certain ways. So we're trying to figure out with the district or the archdiocesan level, we're looking at a couple of Catholic schools as well, what they're doing to think about nutritional issues, then going from there to the individual school level administrators, whether it's a principal that's in charge of this or a panel of teachers to figure out exact feeding programs in individual school. If there are any partnerships that anyone might be aware of, like NFL Play 60, just really get a good picture on what our schools are doing about nutrition there. Then we want to talk to individual teachers or the lunch providers, so if it's an aide, if it's school nurses, and ask them about what their experience is, like giving kids food. Are the kids eating this food? Do you find a particular issue with the fact that a lot of these schools don't have kitchens and food's just shipped in and microwaved? Do kids enjoy the food? How is it consumed? Are they throwing it? Are they throwing it away? So that, and then we want to target we're doing partnership with 6 schools, I'm not sure if you're aware, but then identify one classroom at each school and do an in-depth interview with each one of the students, as well as the teacher, and hopefully the students' parents as well. We haven't quite worked out the logistics around that. But the Philadelphia School Survey, we really want to get an idea of how schools are treating food and how kids are eating. Because as far as anyone can figure, this is bad nutritional choices are something that started off very young. So we really want to figure out how we can best address that moving forward. We also have strong partnerships with schools, and there's a large LaSalle presence in schools. So from a service learning perspective in the future, some of the programmatic things that we may end up doing will end up in schools. So this is an important part of our development. We're also doing a good amount of academic research. We have 2 proposals in now, and there's more coming in as it goes on, of people applying for grants, one from the economics and the other from the psychology departments, with people that want to do academic research around nutritional issues in this neighborhood. It's a double-sided thing. It's I shouldn't say double-sided in the sense of good and bad, but there's 2 ways that this will help out. First, people are doing this research and getting published, which is great for professional career development from the academic perspective, but then there's also, because they're looking at the problem that we're looking at more broadly, the research that they do will help inform what we end up doing in the future. So it's just getting, again, a very clear picture of what this community's challenges are with regards to nutritional health. Then active projects, what I'm working on now. The Easter food drive is the big one. We're hoping to partner with 15 local churches or other organizations, nonprofits, that kind of thing, that will be delivering food, either delivering food to people or serving food to people to celebrate the Easter holiday. We're not doing a massive, let's raise $100,000 worth of canned goods to distribute around to fill abundance. We're trying to provide fresh and healthy foods to these places to help supplement what it is that they're already doing. One, it's a good service. It's something that should be done and something that we can do, and it's something that we've done in the past. But we want to do it better, and this is what's going to happen with this particular Easter food drive. The other is that we want to cement up these partnerships. Like I said, the partnership side of this is extremely important from our perspective. We also really want to have a strong partnership with the churches. The amount of social capital that the churches have in this neighborhood in terms of connections to people and in terms of goodwill is extremely important for us moving forward. They'll give us great access to other organizations, to groups of people, to the movers and shakers of these communities, and it's a good just place to connect anywhere. So the idea is that if we pull off this successful Easter food drive, and we will, then the churches will want to work with us in the future because they see that we are serious and they see that we are very committed to what it is that our mission is. I'm also doing a lot of community outreach. So this conversation that I'm having with you is something that I'm having on an almost daily basis at this point. I'm going to churches, like I said, but then other organizations as well, to sit down and talk about, what I'd like to do, what my project's particularly interested in, but then also try to find out what the organizations or that individuals or that church's particular concerns are, or what they do specifically, so I can just get a very clear picture on what's happening in this neighborhood, and then figure out how to address those needs, how to make things work better, how to change things around a little bit, how to take shared experiences and change what I end up doing. So the community outreach is really the building of partnerships. And then what we need is partnership. We need more people to know what it is that we're doing, more people to know mine and my boss's name, and to know that LaSalle University has a commitment to this community in more ways than just being a part of it and bringing in business and bringing in students. So it's really just a kind of growing of knowledge about issues of nutritional health, creating as much white noise as possible, and hoping that eventually, in the macro sense, people start making better nutritional health choices in this neighborhood. And how that ends up happening, we don't quite know yet, but we know that a lot of people are interested in this, and this is something that has legs and is gaining a lot of ground. Like I said, we had a very big lunch last week at which were present all three academic deans, the provost, who's the chief academic officer of LaSalle, and a VP from the president's office, the president of LaSalle, I should say, not the president. But he was there, and it's this full university commitment to this, so that's all very important. But then there were also 8 pastors there. There were 12 different organizations represented from around the community, many of whom had never been to LaSalle before, and they came to LaSalle to talk about nutritional health. So this is something that's very much on people's minds. We're not exactly sure how we're going to change things, but we know that people do want to change things. And so we're just trying to figure out how best to do that. So I do know that's a little bit vague. Like I said, we don't know exactly what it is that we're doing, but we've got 65 people thinking pretty hard on what to do, and just trying to organize that thought process, I suppose. That's that.
I want to start out with questions. Anybody? Don, yes,
Last semester there was an article written about the co-op out in Chestnut Hill,
Mm-hmm.
and it was kind of I guess kind of like belittling the Fresh Grocer.
Yeah, we didn't like that.
Yeah, I remember. Is it because the co-op is taking away from that business, or is it because the project is against co-ops?
Neither. The Fresh Grocer doesn't view Weaver's Way as a competitor. They operate on a different business model, they're serving a different product, and they're largely trying to tap into different populations. If anyone has shopped at Weaver's Way, you're going to get some fresh arugula and maybe some organic spices and 50-pound steak. But at Fresh Grocer, you can get a box of cereal and a bag of apples. So it's just a different business model. The issue that we had with that article was that it presented some of the challenges that Fresh Grocer is facing, and without actually acknowledging that there are challenges. What the article didn't talk about was that it is 3 times more expensive to operate a grocery store in an urban community than it is in a suburban community. Weaver's Way isn't operating a grocery store, which means that they can then provide a completely different product without having to deal with the same kind of challenges. So it was belittling to Fresh Grocer, and it was, I mean, you know, these are things people read all the time. A lot of times you're not going to get the greatest produce at a grocery store, but a lot of times it's also anecdotal based on one time that you go in. And if you don't look at the full picture as to why that produce might not have been the freshest or the most delicious, then you're really missing the forest for the trees. Yeah.
You said that the Fresh Grocer and the Temple do better than the Linear, and I've seen those 2 Fresh Grocers, and the neighborhoods seem to be the same as the Linear. So is there any idea why?
There are some ideas why. The biggest one that I suspect, and I'm sure Fresh Grocer has a different answer for this, but is that those colleges are just bigger. You know, there's more kids with more access to money. They're serving the university community in addition to the community itself, whereas this is largely, LaSalle's a smaller school. So we have less students that will be shopping there full time. The focus is more on providing the Fresh Grocer's resources to the community. It's a community that hasn't necessarily gotten used to shopping at a Fresh Grocer before, for a variety of reasons. So it's probably one of the biggest factors. Yeah.
Do you think you could describe like how this idea got started?
Sure, yeah. Again, the idea got started in 2009 when the Fresh Grocer came in. And people just kind of thought, okay, now we have access to fresh and healthy foods, everyone's going to be healthier. But then, like I said, the Fresh Grocer's been operating at a loss. People aren't using it quite as much as they should. And then academics, as they tend to do, you see a problem and you want to find all sorts of reasons for why that problem exists and how to change that problem. And it turns out there's a whole lot of different things that people think as to why urban neighborhoods have higher rates of obesity and nutrition-related diseases. So Margie Allen, my boss, tried to look at this problem with, I mentioned an LGU capstone class, and she tried to do this last year in partnership with the corner stores, with the assumption that corner stores were the way to solve nutritional health issues. But then going into academic research and a lot of other anecdotal, experiences and a lot of critical thinking about that research really says that the corner store model doesn't really make much sense, and that nobody's figured out exactly why. I mean, there's lots of reasons why, but nobody's figured out a good way to address the disparity in obesity and health-related issues related to nutrition in urban environments. So it's really just an expression of frustration that there's so much research done on this problem, but that the problem persists in such a strong way, if that makes sense. And that's where the idea for then Margie sent out a 4-page email to all faculty and all staff over the summer, and 65 people responded. And then that email is essentially saying, presenting the problem in broad terms, and I propose that I start my own organization to help address these things. And then I got hired, and now we're doing this. So that's how the idea started. Yeah.
Is there any specific research being done on this neighborhood?
Assuming that the grants are accepted and we can get the money, and it's not much, so I assume that this research will get done. That is the only research that is being done on this neighborhood.
So you're just basing it off of the larger.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of neighborhoods that look a lot like this neighborhood around the country. The University of Washington actually has, like in Seattle, they have quite a bit of research on this kind of thing. Different communities, different challenges, but similar from a socioeconomic perspective. Temple has also, they have a Center for Obesity Study, or something, I'm forgetting the name. So they might have done some at some point, but I don't know. They're not looking at the exact questions that we'll be looking at. Yeah.
When you were talking about the Philadelphia school surveys and how the school district perceives nutrition, did you say kids are eating the food or they're not eating the food?
Anecdotally, they're not. Throwing away their vegetables, overcooked, doesn't taste great. But then you ask an 8th grader or anything, what kind of straight answer are you really going to get unless you systematically look at it? So we don't know.
Have you reached out to
Bottom dollar. We have not. Part of that is a management of the corporate relationship that we have with Fresh Grocer. But at some point, I mean, we know Jeff Brown, who's the CEO of ShopRite, who is a competitor of Fresh Grocer, but he's also linked in with Michelle Obama, who is promoting, as many of you I'm sure know, a lot of these healthy eating initiatives. So if the president's wife is, very connected to the CEO of ShopRite, Fresh Grocer is obviously aware of this, and it's a partnership that if it becomes reasonable at a certain time, we'll manage that in that way. But for right now, and for this foreseeable future of this project, the Fresh Grocer is going to be our main corporate partner, with everyone else operating peripherally with us. Yeah.
If people aren't shopping at the Fresh Grocer, where are they getting their groceries?
That's a good question. Maybe the market research class will look into that a little bit more specifically. The assumption is corner stores, or they're buying, one meal at whatever. But like I said, one suspects that the grocery shopping culture is a little bit different than it would be in, say, Jenkintown. Yeah.
And you said the academic research grants, they're the two programs you mentioned are for psychological and what was the other?
Economics. They're not. It's from the psychology department, and it's from the economics department, and both of them actually are kind of connected in that they could probably be both related to behavioral economics, which is why people make choices that they make. But both research questions are around that field.
Questions? Anybody else? Obviously, you are right across the hall.
Yeah, I actually have business cards that I wanted to give anybody in case there's any other questions. But yeah, I also live right across the hall, so there's that.
Well, yeah, not that we want to have people knocking on your door, but we will be. I will be.
Yeah, can't avoid you. But thanks for having me.
Thank you.
And let me know if you have any questions at any point.
Would ask before, but would it be useful to have this as just like PowerPoint back up on our website for later so we can get back? I think so. That's good enough. You can just send me a copy of that. No,
Yeah.
You don't mind it being up on a public blog. It's nothing.
Not at all.
No. Okay. But again, the kind of question you need to ask if you're going to use someone else's resources. And when we have presenters, I'll always do that. Some say yes, some say no. Some say they want to put it on their own site. But since we're all in the same place, the same business, that's good to know. Okay. I will